There are three men who never met. They lived centuries apart in different countries, speaking different languages. One was a political advisor exiled from his own city. One was a psychiatrist who stared into the darkest corners of the human mind. One was a philosopher who died believing the world had misunderstood him completely. None of them wrote about money. Not directly. But if you read between their lines, you'll find the same warning, repeated three different ways. The world does not reward the person who is good. It rewards the person who understands appearance, who understands their own hidden drives, and who has the will to keep becoming more than they currently are. This is the shadow game, and almost no one is taught how to play it. The setup. Most people chase wealth with one tool: effort. Work harder, save more, hustle longer, and effort matters. No one is denying that. But effort without understanding is just motion. It's a hamster wheel with better shoes. The three lenses we're about to use aren't about effort. They're about leverage of a different kind. Leverage over perception, leverage over your own unconscious mind, and leverage over your own becoming. Lens 1, the strategist, who understood that the world runs on appearances, not just substance. Lens 2, the psychiatrist, who understood that the things we refuse to look at in ourselves end up running our lives anyway. Lens 3, the philosopher, who understood that comfort is the enemy of every person who wants to become powerful. Stack these three together, and you get something most personal finance advice never gives you: a map of the inner game behind the outer results. Law 1. Perception is the currency. The strategist's core insight was brutally simple. People don't respond to what you are. They respond to what they believe you are. Reputation moves faster than truth, and it moves first. Translate that into wealth, and you get an uncomfortable truth. The person who looks competent gets offered the opportunity before the person who is competent but invisible. The investor who appears calm under pressure gets trusted with capital before the one who is actually calmer but says nothing. This isn't an argument for being fake. It's an argument for being deliberate. Most people broadcast their doubts, their desperation, their need for the deal to go through, and the market smells it instantly. Desperation is the most expensive scent a person can wear in a negotiation. The strategist's advice, translated for the modern wallet: control what is seen before you worry about controlling what is true. Build the appearance of stability first, because stability attracts the resources that eventually make the appearance real. People invest in the version of you that already looks like it doesn't need the investment. That's not manipulation. That's understanding that capital, money, trust, opportunity flows toward confidence and away from visible panic, regardless of who deserves it more on paper. Law 2. Your shadow is spending your money. The psychiatrist's most uncomfortable idea was this: everything you refuse to acknowledge about yourself doesn't disappear. It goes underground, and it starts steering your decisions from the dark. Apply that to money, and the pattern becomes obvious. The person who grew up afraid of being seen as greedy will sabotage their own raises and negotiations, not because they lack skill, but because some hidden part of them associates wealth with becoming a person they were taught to despise. The person who secretly fears failure more than they want success will choose safe, small, invisible plays and call it being responsible, when really their shadow is just avoiding the spotlight where failure would be witnessed. Here's the test. Look at your last 5 money decisions, not the ones you're proud of, the ones you avoided, the investment you didn't make, the price you didn't ask for, the negotiation you walked away from too early. Somewhere in that pattern is a belief you've never said out loud, and that belief has a price tag attached to it every single month. The psychiatrist's method wasn't to suppress the shadow further. It was to drag it into the light and look at it directly. Because the things we examine lose their grip, and the things we avoid keep theirs. Ask yourself, honestly, what does richer you believe about money that current you has never admitted? That's not a rhetorical question. That's the actual leak in your bank account. Law 3. Comfort is the quiet thief. The philosopher's entire body of work circles one demand: stop optimizing for comfort and start optimizing for growth, even when growth hurts more than staying still. Most people structure their financial lives around minimizing discomfort. The safe job, even when it has no ceiling. The familiar spending habits, even when they quietly bleed the future. The refusal to ask for more, because rejection stings more than stagnation does today. But stagnation has a cost. It's just deferred. It shows up 10 years later as regret instead of as a single uncomfortable afternoon. The philosopher's wager was that a person who keeps choosing the harder, more honest path, speaking up, taking the calculated risk, doing the thing that might fail publicly, becomes someone fundamentally different from the person who keeps choosing the soft option. Not louder, not more aggressive. Different. Structurally stronger, the way a muscle under repeated resistance becomes stronger, while a muscle never tested simply atrophies in comfort. This is the part most wealth content skips because it isn't a tactic, it's a posture. It's the decision made repeatedly to treat your current limits as a draft, not a final answer. The market does not pay people for staying who they were. It pays people for who they're willing to become under pressure. The synthesis: how the 3 laws work together. Here's where it gets interesting. These 3 laws aren't separate tools. They're stages of the same machine. You can't manage your outer perception, like the strategist teaches, if your unmanaged shadow keeps leaking insecurity through your tone, your hesitation, your eyes when the stakes get high. The mask slips precisely where the unexamined fear lives. So Law 2 has to come first, or Law 1 becomes a costume that falls off under pressure, and you can't sustain Law 3, the willingness to keep becoming someone stronger, without Law 1 protecting you from the social cost of looking unfinished while you grow. Growth is awkward in public. Perception management is what lets you take the risk quietly enough that you can fail, learn and try again without the whole room watching your worst draft. So the actual sequence looks like this. Examine the shadow first so your fear stops making decisions for you. Manage the perception second so the world extends you the trust and capital that growth requires. And relentlessly choose discomfort third so the gap between who you are and who you could be keeps closing instead of calcifying. Skip the order and the system breaks. Manage perception without examining the shadow and you become a person performing confidence over a foundation of panic, exhausting, and eventually visible. Choose discomfort without managing perception and your growth gets punished publicly before it has time to compound. Examine the shadow without ever choosing discomfort and you get self-awareness with no results, a person who understands themselves perfectly and changes nothing. The parable. Picture 2 people standing at the same door, the same opportunity, the same year. The first walks in loudly, talks about how hungry they are for this deal, how much they need it to work, how badly things have gone before. They are honest, painfully honest, and the room reads that honesty as instability, even though every word is true. They walk out with nothing, not because they were undeserving, but because their unexamined fear narrated the whole meeting for them. The second walks in differently, not because they have more money or more credentials or even more confidence underneath. They simply did the work beforehand, sat with their own fear of being too much or not enough, named it, and set it down outside the door before they walked in. They built the appearance of steadiness deliberately, not as a lie, but as a discipline. And when the harder question came, the one that exposed a weakness in their plan, they didn't flinch or over-explain. They said simply, "That's a fair point. Here's how I'd adjust," and kept their composure. Oikats, same opportunity, same door, different machinery running underneath. The second person didn't have a better personality. They had run the 3 laws in order long before the meeting started. None of this is about becoming cold or fake or someone who manipulates the people around them. It's the opposite. It's about no longer being manipulated by the unexamined parts of your own mind. The fear wearing the costume of caution, the avoidance wearing the costume of patience. The strategist studied power because he watched honest, talented people lose to people who simply understood the game better. The psychiatrist studied the shadow because he watched brilliant people sabotage their own lives from a place they refused to look at. The philosopher demanded discomfort because he watched comfortable people slowly disappear into versions of themselves they never chose. Wealth, in the end, isn't just a number. It's the visible residue of which inner game you were actually playing. If this reframed how you think about money, subscribe. Because next time, we go deeper into one of these three laws and build it into something you can actually use this week.